Hello everybody, welcome to Not the Planet FPL Game Week 12 deadline stream, and it's live as ever. The deadline stream is brought to you in partnership with FPL Team, your best one-stop shop for all your FPL planning needs. It has just gone 4:45 p.m. UK time on Friday, November the 10th, which happens to be Harry's 5th birthday. Thank you, everybody, to your very kind birthday wishes for the little man today. Nobody wishes me happy birthday like that, but then he's a lot better looking than me, isn't he? So, yeah, he's got his mother's looks, not mine. I'm very, very aware. No deadline stream for me tomorrow morning. I'm going to be in Wolverhampton watching Ben Davis and Eric Dyer try and play offside traps on the halfway line. Can't wait. Looking forward to it. So can't do the deadline stream in the morning, unfortunately. So as ever, as a replacement for Ask James, not the deadline stream, brought forward for you to the night before. For those joining on the stream, don't panic. It's not a Friday FPL deadline. Hello to everybody who's listening back on the audio. As ever with the deadline stream, I'll try and get through as many of the FPL dilemmas as possible. Basically over the next sort of 50 minutes or so, I think should just about cover us off. For transparency, the team on screen that you can see is mine, which currently is Johnston, Cash, Saliba, Shimikas, Saka, Bowen, Son, Mitoma, Alvarez, Captain Haaland, and Watkins. I've got 2 free transfers. He's not going to stay like that. I haven't fully decided what I'm going to do. Once I have decided, I will post my team on Twitter. I'm not playing Secret Squirrel. And I won't be waiting lastminute.com because I'll be fully focused on Tottenham in the morning. So if I do something in the morning, it'll be early morning, but it's probably more likely I'll post something tonight. The most likely thing I'm going to do is Gusto to Lascelles and Maddison to Martinelli. Which would mean benching Alvarez. I did want to captain Saka. I don't have enough confidence in any of my other options for the armband, so Haaland is going to get it, despite the fact I think there's every chance Chelsea might get a result on Sunday. Right, I think that's it. Let's get through the questions. If the answer to your question is on screen, guys, for the benching dilemmas or anything like that, it'd be amazing if you did the courtesy of deleting the question, but this is going out as an audio as well. I'm not so fussed, but repeat similar questions will probably be skipped. I'm expecting 99 questions on Bukayo Saka. I'll probably just clarify it now and say, Mikel Arteta said this afternoon that he didn't train yesterday, and yet Arsenal probably trained before his press conference today. So if someone can find out if he trained today or didn't, that's where the answer will lie. I suspect he'll probably play. In my case, as I'm probably going to have Alvarez first sub, I'm not that fussed. FPL Roberto's first up with the question says, hi mate, hope Harry's had a good birthday. Happy with my team, but I need an enabler I can use in game week 18. Any reason not to do Lamptey to Livramento this week? So just did the team news stream for advanced tier patrons, and I spoke about Livramento quite a bit. So look, upside, no doubt about it. We know his capabilities from obviously his season with Southampton. Really impressed when he came on against Arsenal last week. I just can't shake the feeling that Kieran Trippier is probably not going to play left back for the next 2 months. With obviously Dan Burn, Matt Targett, obviously both injured. Now, he's the natural one to cover there, but as we saw on Wednesday night, Lewis Hall can play there, and Livramento played a higher position. So, look, Livramento's coming off the back of an extremely long and bad knee injury, which did have a setback midway through as well. So, do I think Livramento is going to play every game between now and game week 18? I doubt it. And that's why Lascelles is the more likely call for me, because it's exactly that. Now, of course, I could go Lascelles and Botman could return in a couple of weeks, and that renders that pretty useless. And I get that and understand that. But I'm not as convinced on others. Is Livramento on the face of it a better choice than big tasty Jamal Lascelles? Yeah, sure, of course. But you're saying you want to use it in game week 18. We're coming into game week 12. You want me to guarantee you that he's going to play at Luton in game week 18? I'm afraid I can't do that. And other fixtures, for example, who do they play in game week 17? I've got a good fixture as well. Fulham at home, which is like 3 days after they play Tottenham away on the Thursday night. Like, 17 is probably not as much of a problem for you if he doesn't play, but you're still going to want him in the starting lineup because you're going to want to pick him. So if you wanted something to put you off, I've probably just given it to you. Tiffy Ferreira says, why is Israel playing in Euro 2024 qualifiers when it is located in Asia? So Israel have been in European qualifiers, I think, since the 90s, I want to say. Part of Israel, I think, is in Europe, although the majority of it is in Asia. Quite why they don't go through the Asian qualifying, I don't know, because it gives them a far better chance of actually qualifying for a major tournament. But it has been that way for a really long time. Aaron Hill says, hi James, bench one of Mitoma and Ketcher, Darwin, Saka and Diaby. Leaning towards the latter, but honestly have no clue. Have Saka captained right now as well, but feel I have to change that. Cheers. The sensible answer at this point might be Nketiah. I think it's probably Trossard just plays again through the middle tomorrow as it stands. You'd obviously want Nketiah in the team if he does start, but I think all the others start, and that includes Mitoma. I guess from the rest, if you were insistent on you really want to start with Nketiah, and I would certainly understand that. Because as I said at Sunday's show, on the live pod, I would have considered captaining him even this week. I think if I'd have got him in, and there was doubts now about Saka, I'd be thinking, oh my God, yeah, I really might captain Nketiah. That's obviously a definite no-no at this stage. So I get why you'd want to play him. From the rest, yes, probably would be leave out Diaby with big reluctance. Demetrius G says, armband on Saka if I think he'll either start or not make the squad. Especially I'm chasing and don't have Salah. I think he's seen his highest of the Salah alternatives this week. The problem is nothing to say he won't be a sub, right? He's Burnley at home. Could they put him on the bench and take a view and go, he's not 100%, we'll leave him on the bench, and if we need him for a goal, we'll bring him on. Like, it's not implausible, is it? He's really, really not. So I'm not keen on that, unfortunately. I think that's something that's probably unlikely, but it's plausible and enough to make me think, nah, I don't want to take that route. Milan Razavi says, hello James, plan to do Matters to Saka and Cash/Porro to Livramento to sells. Who would you sell and buy out of both options? Thinking of keeping Porro now on all set pieces, but clean sheet potential is limited. I wouldn't say all set pieces. Like, I think probably going to still have Sonny probably on more corners, I would have thought, than Porro. We'll see tomorrow. We'll find out. Free kicks, Sonny might get on some as well. To be honest, very happy with Pedro Porro's delivery, certainly from free kick positions rather than perhaps Son. Son offers, I mean, neither of them are going to be heading the ball in anyway. I suppose Son's instincts in and around the box are a little bit more useful if the ball kind of drops, you trust him and stuff. I've just explained on Lascelles Livramento for me, so, and I can go Livramento, so I'm not going to cover that again. On binning Cash Porro, the answer to that probably lies in which one do you think you're going to use more between 12 and 17 and use a tool such as FPL Team. I'd be very reluctant to sell Matty Cash this week, would be my take. So probably rather you sold Porro and came back to it if you wanted out of the two. Sicilian FPL says, hi James, I'm a bit concerned of a no-show from Saka, so considering transferring him to Bowen. My first sub is Shimikas, and I'm not even convinced he starts either. False. I think for me, and we get these ones every now and again, a number of times in a season where there's a really good FPL asset, and because there's a doubt around them, they just fall generally into a line of don't buy, don't sell. And I'm certainly in a no-sell. The only way I would sell him for me right now would be taking a -4 to force Mo Salah in. It just doesn't feel right for me. So it's a no-sell for me, my friend. That would be my take. Also says, happy birthday to Little Happy. Hope he has a belter. Thank you, mate. Cosmos says, hello, James. Should I do Burn to Gabriel or Cash to Saliba? Already did Douglas Luiz to Palmer to facilitate the first move. Short 0.2 for Burns Saliba. Have a great weekend. Yeah, I would go Gabriel. Yeah. I mean, again, on that team news stream, I just spoke about the fact, like, look, it's fixture for Arsenal off the back of two tough games. Certainly in terms of their importance, let's at least say Newcastle away and Seville at home, where, you know, it was pressure on, they won comfortably Wednesday, but it was pressure on obviously having to win. Is it a huge shock if Saliba doesn't play tomorrow? That's part of me going. That's why I explained about why I want to make the second one and go Gusto Lascelles for me is cover mainly, not for Shimikas. Because with Shimikas, I think, well, if he's not in the 11, he'll probably come on. So it's more, Saliba's the one that's more likely to be the 0-pointer, where I'd maybe want the cover, and Lascelles kind of feels ideal for that scenario. So, yeah, I would go Gabriel. Listen, this isn't to me saying I think Saliba will be left out. I think they'll both play. But I don't think we should treat it like when Gabriel played against Sheffield United and didn't play in 10, I don't know why there was such like shock about it. Playing one of the weakest teams in the league at home, manager wants to rotate. He might decide to do the same tomorrow. So, no, Gabriel had a break in midweek. Like, I'd play him. I'd get him. Burns got to go, right? Burns useless to you. He's got to go. So that's the move I'd make. Sean says, afternoon, James. Just back from Copenhagen with a sore head. I presume that's watching Manchester United. Best Maddison replacements, not including Martinelli. Edging towards Eze, myself. Jared Bowen, I think, if you don't have, would be the standout. That's obviously affordable. I think Mitoma, if you want to punt, is fine. It's another one I think he probably plays Sunday. I probably wouldn't stress about that too much. I think Bowen would be the standout. I would arguably prefer Mohamed Kudus to Eze. Just because Eze's coming back from injury. And also, if you get stuck with Kudus, the fixtures are a little bit better than Eze for a little bit longer. So I would throw that out there as an alternative as well. Shri MC says, hi James, thanks for your thoughts. Maddison replaced with Eze versus Bowen. We've basically just covered, but thank you for your question. Murphy says, hey James, looks like I'll be taking out Maddison and Porro with my 2 free transfers. The decision is between replacing them with Saka and Livramento or Martinelli and Saliba. Martinelli and Saliba, kind of prefer that as a duo. JHSUFC says, hi James, used my free transfer this week to move Stones. Have a Dingra, Saka, Martinelli, Son as bust midfielders. Would you use -4 to transfer out Maddison to Bowen and bench one of Darwin or a Dingra, or move next week? I haven't got a Dingra in my predicted Brighton lineup due to the minutes last night, and I think it's different with him and Mitoma. That's my take. And again, they're playing Sheffield United. Like, I know he's clear of Buonanotte, for example, but could De Zerbi go, I'll play Buonanotte against Sheffield United? Yes, I think he absolutely could. So, yeah, I probably would, actually. Subject to the value you're at. Maybe if it might be a weird one where if say you're 0.3 up on Maddison, there's less of a rush to do something, right? If you're 0.2 up or 0.4 up, which is what I'm up at the moment, some of you might be 0.6 up. Like, I get it. Take the value. But if you're kind of 0.3, 0.5 up, maybe not. That might even be the definitive behind the decision, possibly. Adnan Shamsul says, hi, James. Who would be the priority transfer out between Maddison and Udogie with 1 free transfer? It's Maddison, mate. And it's really, really simple. I mean, it's not like wild logic. Udogie will be back next week and he'll be back in the team next week. James Maddison is probably not going to be back in the team till, I'm going to guess, game week 22-ish. This is game week 12. There's nothing to think about. It's sell. Milan Razavsi says, if I make the move as I said above, I can't remember what that is, mate. Who would you bench? Cash, Porro, whoever is left, or the new Newcastle defender in Livramento or Lascelles? Thank you for both answers. Hope you're well. If you go Lascelles, I would play both over Lascelles. So in terms of an order there, I would go Cash, Porro, Livramento, Lascelles. Sicilian FPL says, what are your thoughts on the group of death in the Champions League now? Who do you think goes through? It seems very open for PSG, Milan, Dortmund and Newcastle now. Newcastle's injuries aren't helping. Yeah, Newcastle are in trouble, aren't they? Because I think as well, because it's PSG away next, then there's a chance they're completely out of Europe. Then they might heavily rotate and it's a better fixture then for Milan. So I think the definitive game might well lie in what Milan do against Dortmund in the San Siro in match day 5 will probably be definitive. I would think Dortmund have probably got the run at it now, but I know your team, Milan, played very well against PSG. I didn't see a lot of the game, but all the reports I heard was that Milan were very, very good. And it's a great atmosphere there, which I obviously got the pleasure of experiencing in February. But Dortmund held up against a very good atmosphere at St James's Park, obviously very recently as well. So I think the Milan-Dortmund game will probably be definitive. I think PSG will probably get through, but they'll have to beat Newcastle, and that'll be easier said than done. I think for Newcastle now, unfortunately, the back-to-back defeats to Dortmund, that's going to look tough. They've probably got to win in Paris, I'm afraid. And with the injuries they've got at the moment, unfortunately, it's going to be tough. If Newcastle could squeeze third under the circumstances, I know it's not what they would have wanted. If they could squeeze third out of it now, they'll have a real good shot at the Europa. And the fans would still be very engaged in that, I think. So I hope for them that they stay in it, to be honest. Michael Lowe says, logging out of Sky lasted long. Yeah. Had an ideal defence of Saliba, Dunk, Romero. Yeah, I've got those. I have those three, and Shimmick has to that. Would you go Romero and Dunk to Ben White and Dawson, 9 fixtures including the single game day cap, or just Romero, Anderson, 7 fixtures? So the honest answer, Michael, is I haven't decided yet, and I want to make my FPL decision before I make my Sky decision. Otherwise, I just keep bouncing back. So once I've made my FPL decision tonight, I will then make my decision on the Sky decision, and there's a number of options to consider. I think earlier in the week I was leaning just going Romero to Palmer, which, because I've got a back four I can do. I realise you can't do that. I think Anderson, what I'm thinking with Anderson as well is, if Dunk turns into a long-term issue, that would cover the Palace-Brighton captaincy. I think in terms of Wolves' assets, I'd go Kilman rather than Dawson, just because Dawson is close to a suspension. So I would rather you went Kilman than Dawson. But I'm not massively keen on that. And my current take at the moment is still probably to skip the fixture. But I will have another look at that with Kilman tonight. That would be the way I'd go if I went that way. On Dunk, my thinking is to keep. My thinking is to keep because I definitely want him back. So unless it's serious, i.e. if De Zerbi was to say, I will have a plan to move to something else on Sunday, even if that is, say, Cole Palmer. Say I went Anderson, I was like, right, I'll maybe go Dunk to Palmer Sunday. If De Zerbi says prior to the game, do you know what, shit, he's out for 6 weeks. Okay, fine, it's too long. But if Dunk's back for even game week 15, I think because of the captaincy and when they play in that week, I'd probably just keep him, is my take at the moment. So it's a little bit different one to the Romero because I have Son. There isn't a Tottenham requirement for a captaincy till the Forest game. So yeah, I might go back there, but I do have the coverage. If I sell Dunk, he's best choice for the Palace Brighton captaincy in a few weeks. I'll definitely want him back. So my take on Dunk is an unusual one that right now I need more information before I consider selling. And if De Zerbi was to say a couple of weeks, I think in my circumstance, because I've used quite a few, and I already took him out once before and brought him back and probably regretted that, I would maybe just leave it. Ben White, not massively keen on, to be honest. Not massively. You're not going to like looking at White and Saliba together for those 3 fixtures, Villa, Brighton, Liverpool. But it's a differential way to go. I don't hate it, let's say. Garlic25 says, with the news on Maddison, think I should go Stones and Maddison out for Martinelli and Saliba, or Udogi to someone else. No, Stones and Maddison out's absolutely fine, mate. Destiny will be back next week. Patrick Lawson says, any interest in differentials worth considering as Maddison replacements? Kudos, for example. Yep. I just mentioned him. I think there's a number that you can go to. I don't know if Bowman kind of still falls into that line. Come down to Palmer. I guess Mitoma's probably falls into that line. Anthony Gordon, Diaby. There's loads. Hwang, Eze's back. There's loads. Absolutely loads to consider. And with this, with the problems, I spoke about this on Wednesday's Sky Pod. With the problems, you think, oh, I'm set. And then something happens and shit changes. Now there's opportunity. And with that opportunity, it makes me think about Martinelli more. Another Hoop says, hi, mate. I've got Saka and Maddison in my first 11 with a bench of Alvarez and Shimikas. Do you think it's worth taking a -4 now for Maddison to Bowen? Thanks. Yes. Yeah, I think it probably is. Great fixture at home to Forest. Yeah, I think it is. So, arguably, if I don't know, I'm just trying to think if I heard there was a doubt about Haaland late tonight, for example, where would I go with the armband? I would maybe just stick it on Bowen, to be honest. LP says, hi James, currently have Porro and Hwang on my bench. Would you play either over Shimikas or Nketiah this week? Best of luck for the match tomorrow. Cheers. Certainly a close one in terms of who you'd start out of Hwang and Porro. I feel like I need to remind myself of my own benching dilemmas and how I've set that up, actually. I mean, it's Hwang above Porro, isn't it? Yeah, that is what I've done. And I think that's probably right, just for the offensive output. I would, again, as covered for someone else earlier with Nketiah, I get the want to leave him and stick him in the team, absolutely. I totally get that. But chances are you probably got Hwang coming in for him, I would guess, at this moment. Chris Smith says, hi mate, hope you have a great weekend. Happy birthday to Harry. Any consideration for double Arsenal defence going forward? Yeah, it's been thought about. I mean, Gabriel would be the one for me, probably. I think the problem with it is what I said. It's that problem 16 to 18. You're not going to want to look at it. And I think it's obvious at that point you will look at Chelsea and, something like Saliba to Reece James. At the moment, we can laugh, but if he does stay fit between now and then, yeah, sure, Saliba to Reece James might be on the agenda around about game week 16 for me, for example. That's the main problem with it. Over the next 4, great, but you just need to look ahead. Again, use a tool like FPL Team and figure out what do you want to do when you get there. Because what you also have to consider is once you're coming into that period, you're thinking about the City fixtures, Luton against Crystal Palace, before City's blank. And then you're also thinking about maybe moving them out or alternatives to get yourself set up for maybe Tottenham, Villa, Newcastle players in game week 18 and maybe Chelsea over that period as well. So does it work? Does it work moving one of them out? I don't think you're not going to want to go through those 3 fixtures with both. I don't think. So that's all. But over the next 3, perfectly reasonable. I'm sure it will do pretty well. Konstantinos says, I currently have Jesus and Madeds and 6 other great attackers. I'm tempted to roll, play Gabriel as 4th defender and keep both. Otherwise, I would try to get Bruno. There's no reason to keep James Maddison, honestly. Jesus, I get it. He's not even been ruled out of tomorrow, by the way, according to Mikel Arteta earlier. I'm sure it's a very small chance that he's involved. Maddison is a serious injury. There's nothing to hold on to there. Dave Brown says, hi James, looking at a forward transfer this week in a 3-5-2 from Alvarez. Would you prioritise Watkins for a hit or Darwin Ferguson, someone else cheaper for free? Love Evan Ferguson as a 1-week punt, by the way. I've got him on the captaincy, top 10. But I think it would just be a 1 week. So, yeah, Darwin Núñez for free. A great move. I'm looking at possibly going Watkins to Núñez around about 14, 15. So, yeah, Núñez for me. Thank you, Another Hoops, for tagging in your reply. I appreciate that, mate. Lewis Cole says, hi, James. Is it worth a -4 to get Bowen and Gabriel in or just do one move and play Branthwaite? Cheers. Yeah, Branthwaite at Palace is okay. I think that's likely to be low scoring. He says, you heard me say that I thought Tottenham-Chelsea would be tight. I was right about Newcastle-Arsenal, not right about Tottenham-Chelsea, though. But yeah, Palace-Everton doesn't feel like a game that will have a lot of goals. He has been a little bit of a doubt this week, it's worth saying, but I know Sean Dyche said that he trained on Thursday, so we can only assume that he trained today. He's certainly first choice now, no doubt about that. I don't think that's a terrible one for this weekend. I'm not a fan of -4s for defenders unless there's a massive upside on it. You're going for your Trips, your Trents, that kind of thing. So, no, just Bowen in and leave the other, I think. My homie says, hi James, happy 5th birthday to Harry. I've got 2 free transfers, looking to sell Pedro for Archer for funds and roll the other faults and bench one of these 2, Gay or Shimikas. Keep up the good work, mate. Look, I think Shimikas will play, but there's enough other people doubt that, and I have to respect that opinion. The one thing we do know we get with Mark Gay is he will definitely play. I'm backing both for a clean sheet this week. It makes it tough. I think the upside is a little bit more with Shimikas, and that's the way I'd want to go. Everton have shown decent form recently, it's worth saying. So preference for me would be play Shimikas, but if you want to go the safe option, you're going to go the other way on that, I should imagine. In terms of finding the funds, you'll have your reasons for that, so I'm not going to argue against it, mate. I keep saying with Pedro, he's one of them that's going to keep coming around as a little bit of a problem. Shivan says, have 2 free transfers and no good transfer to make. What do you think about selling Son for Martinelli or Nketiah for short term? Will Spurs be able to create a lot for some? Tottenham have, in the last, what was our last game? Chelsea. The 2 games before that against Palace and Fulham, we scored 4 goals. 3 of those goals were scored from pressing. And Son was the beneficiary on 2 of the goals where he got a goal and assist against Fulham. So Tottenham can create without the ball as well as with the ball. And the pressing will still be fine. Whatever it is, whether he decides to play Bentancur higher or whether, which I think is probably bringing Lo Celso into the team rather than playing Kulusevski central, the pressing will still be there. And I think that's a part of it, by the way. I think Lo Celso is a decent presser. And he's one to keep an eye on, I think. 4.8. I don't recommend anyone buys him, but I do think it's one to keep an eye on and have a look at again, maybe in 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah, he'll get opportunities. The other thing is, I used this analogy on the Team News stream I just did and looked at Tottenham's next 5 fixtures, which is quite tough, right? Wolves, Villa, City, West Ham, Newcastle, right? As a collective, it's a tough 5. Admittedly, 3 of them are at home. City is obviously away and obviously Wolves is away tomorrow. And I said, well, let's say Tottenham score maybe 8 across the 5, maybe. Listen, it might be less. But let's just say it's 8, okay? So, just over 1.5. Was that 1.6, is it, across the games? How many do you think Son gets to the 8 now Maddison's unavailable? Like, who else do you trust? Spurs will score goals with this team. There's not a doubt about it. I think there's a few of us that even think at the moment it might be a doubling down because of the defensive problems that we are kind of no let off even when we go in front, maybe, because we'll concede chances anyway. So it might even be that we score more. I think Son, you could certainly expect kind of over 50% goal involvement, I think, over this period. And you got a talisman player who, let's think about it like this. If we were repricing the game now, what price would Sonny be? 10? 10? 10.5? And as a forward? Yeah, I think we've got a case here where we've got clear OOP playing up front for one of the most defensive teams in the league. Let's view it for a little bit. And if we view it after Wolves and Villa and we're like, oh shit, this is bad, it really doesn't look good, fine. Let's move him out before Man City away in Gameweek 14. But at the moment, I don't want to let him go. I can get Mo Salah in now. 2 free transfers. I could go Son to Salah. And I could go Maddison to Lo Celso. That's what I'd have to. I can't get to Palmer or Dingra if I went that route. Have to be Lo Celso. Could do it. Lo Celso would always be a sub for me under that circumstance. Certainly in the next sort of 4 or 5 anyway. I don't want to let Sonny go. Even though I can't see me captain him at any point, I don't want to let him go. I think that's great facilitating value and I don't particularly want to move it. In terms of interest in Martinelli, yeah, I probably want to get him with him. Now, I get, for those who've obviously got, say, Salah and Haaland, having 2 of these players becomes more difficult, for example. And what I can't deny is Arsenal's next 4 fixtures look great. And you could also take the view to say, well, I'll sell to Martinelli for the 4, and then if I want some back, I'll get him back. But you've probably built up value as well. Are you going to leave the value free to make that move comfortably come, say, Game Week 17? I think you'll definitely want him there in Game Week 18. I would have a consciousness about this. And I don't think it's overreacting to say sell. I think there's logic in it. But I'd also just consider clear talisman now. And I don't want to sell him. He's playing up front, OOP. And if he gets the service, he'll score goals. He's still a great finisher. And Tottenham's off-the-ball pressing, I think, will also at times facilitate chance creation. I hugely recommend anybody watches Angie's piece with Rio Ferdinand on Between the Lines on TNT last night. Find it. It's only about 20 minutes worth. Find it. And you'll see what I mean from that in terms of Tottenham's chance creation without the ball. Sorry if you're potentially having a little bit of a lag in the stream, guys. You might not be having any problems. I am a little bit on my end. Apologies if you're having a little bit of a disturbed picture. Might make my face looks better. I have no idea. Paul says, hi James, I made a bad 50-50 call and went for Ward-Prowse a few weeks ago. Should I correct this with a -4 for Bowen this week? Cheers. It's the old one I always say, right? Is it one you can do for free next week? In which case, like in a one-off game, Ward-Prowse can outscore him. Now, if you've got other fires next week, or you think it's at some point a move you can't ever make, or i.e. even not next week, then sure, get it done. -4, yeah. Vish says, for most of us that are negotiating blanks doubles with transfers, how do we also deal with Asia Cup, AFCON, Salah and Mbumo, etc., all likely to be in? Well, yeah, they'll go, won't they? So, I mean, for those who are on the Salah path and non-Haaland path, then I think there's a swap period, isn't there? And you're going to have to probably go without Mo for a little period, which, to be honest, other than Burnley away, is probably not going to be too painful. Maybe Palace away, maybe, if you decide to flip it there in game week 16. But, yeah, would they go, don't they? It's obvious. Oh. I don't really know what to add to it. You're not going to hold them through because there's too many game weeks that they potentially miss. You're looking at 3 weeks probably minimum, I think, for these guys, maybe 4. So they go, don't they? They go. That's it. You build to it, you plan to it, and you bin them. And there should be a consciousness of that. I mean, with Mbumo, there's every chance if the City Brentford double happens, you're potentially going to want, right? So I must say I hadn't factored that in. Of course, Mbumo against Forest won't play in game week 21, will he? Because he will have already gone to AFCON. So off the wild card, it will be Wolves, then double, and then sell. Yeah, I'd not thought about that. So, I mean, that's a sell. And I mean, for me in wildcard 19, do I keep Son for Brighton away, Bournemouth at home? I might, I might. And then just have a plan to move him and Mbumo on in 21. Salah, I think, arguably goes a little bit earlier if it's your facilitator to get Haaland. So, but they'll go. There's no holding on to him. And I also don't. It's far enough away that it's not a stress now. I mean, the Maddison might even be back before AFCON starts. That's how far away it is. Shivan says, whom do you prefer, Gay or Livramento? Already have Lascelles. Gay, nice, next 4, but awful 16, 21. Yeah, so again, a little bit dependent on what you want and what your needs are short term and obviously longer term. For me, it's easy for me to say probably not Gay because I've got Johnston. I do think Palace over the next 4 is pretty good there. So, they're not terrible. I mean, what I'd say is the other ones you say there, I think it's only really City away 17's absolutely awful. Even Liverpool at home, Brighton at home, Chelsea away, Brentford at home. Like, they're not good. Arsenal away is bad as well at the end of that. But, in a few of them, I bet they keep a clean sheet somewhere in there. And the chances are it's a good bench option in the sense you've got a regular playing player there. So I think, to be honest, I mean, with Lascelles, when's Botman back, right? At least Gay might be playing then. So I think probably the more sensible answer is, or Livramento, you're saying, sorry. I think Gay probably. Vish says, is a Newcastle double up in defence viable? Trips and Lascelles / Livra, which one is better? I've done that already right near the start on Lascelles, Livramento. Is it viable? Yeah, sure. I mean, I've got them second best on my fixture ticker up till the blanking game week 18. So, yeah, it's fine if you want to go with double. You're never going to leave trips out, I don't think. Maybe 16 at Tottenham, but generally speaking, even that. I think the fixture's tough enough that week you'd play him. Vish says, best cheap defender to hold long term from Maguire, Lascelles, Taylor, Livramento, etc. Can't look at Maguire as a long-term option. I mean, I think from that, as I've already explained, I think it's probably Lascelles. But it's all dependent on Botman's fitness, isn't it? MG Beckett says, thoughts on replacements for João Pedro, 5.8. Edouard played, maybe. No, I wouldn't go anywhere near that. I think I'd rather have Pedro for the 1 in 4 that he'll possibly return in. So, no, not keen on Edouard as an option at all, almost ever. Odran says, looking to move on Estupinan finally. Who do you favour out of Saliba versus Cher? Also considering Gabriel or Lascelles. So I think Saliba and Lascelles sounds like it might be your one there in all honesty. And amazingly for me, I've lost my stream by the looks of it. Which is not good. I hope the rest of you haven't lost it. But you might have. I think I might be back. But we had a bit of a disconnection there. Sorry, I'm having a bit of gremlins in the system today. Sorry about that, guys. That's also terrible for the audio. Please forgive me. But while I'm rabbiting to myself and trying to find out where I was in the questions, do smash a like and hit the 5 stars while I stumble over myself talking on it for the audio listeners. Colin Johnson says, hi James, Burns to Lascelles or Livramento? Lascelles. I'm going to start... These are getting a very repetitive, guys. I'm going to start running through these a bit quicker, I think. Ali Bismo says, hi James, I've won 3 transfers. Would you move Porro to Shimikas this week or to a Newcastle or Arsenal defender? No, I probably wouldn't go to Shimikas at this minute in time, having let Everton, Forest, Luton go, and then he's got Man City next week. I'd be looking at one of the other options, and preference at this minute would be Arsenal. Craig Boy Crook says, hi James, hope you're well. Thoughts on Watkins captain for a bit of a punt? It's not really a punt, is it? I'm not massively keen. Fulham doesn't feel like a sort of team that you really want to captain players against unless it's sort of Hall and Salah, really. I don't strike that way. I think I'd almost, I'd rather punt like Martinelli against Burnley or Bowen against Forest, for example. Watkins against Fulham just doesn't have that vibe, I don't think. It's not to say he can't go off, but no, I've got to be honest, I'm not massively keen. Jerry Dharma uses, hi James, I've done Maddison and Udogie plus 0.8 to Son and Baldock plus 0.0 in the bank, which isn't the best nor the worst. What? With Maddison out long term, his Son's still worth captaining versus Villa for game week 13. Good luck this game week, mate. Yeah, look, it's Villa's high line, so factor that in, right? Let's see how we feel after this weekend, but I must say my intention in game week 13 will be to captain Haaland against Liverpool. Colin Johnson says, Madders to Saka, Mitoma Araba, have Bowen, Salah, Palmer, and Son. Maybe it's just right time for Martinelli as the other. So look, if there's concrete news that Saka plays, that's where I'd want to go. Yeah, definitely. And Maddison's got to go, as I keep saying. I'm happy that I've got Mitoma. I'm not sure I'd be buying at this stage, personally. That's probably where I'm at. Sorry, that's really shit advice. Like, yeah, I'm happy I'm got him, but I don't know if I'd buy him. That's just being honest about it. I'd almost look at it and think if he blanked against Sheffield United now, after a few recent weeks, I'd be thinking, looking at like Eze coming into a good run, Kudus' fixtures. I'd almost maybe prefer them at this point if I was buying new. That's not to say I'm unhappy with Mitoma. I'm kind of looking Mitoma to Mbeumo in 14 maybe. So maybe there's that influence on it in my thinking. Declan Burns says, hi James, best do doggy replacement under 5.2 to rotate with Saliba, Cash and Shimikas. Is Fabian Schär still in line for that? I'm not sure. You're saying under, so I'm going to ignore Fabian Schär, and I'm going to say, I mean, you've got the same as me, and I'm going Lascelles. Now, admittedly, I'm going from Gusto, and I don't have it, but I could come down from Maddison, and one of the ideas I was thinking about was Maddison to Palmer and Gusto to Trippier. But he does feel like Newcastle. Someone said earlier, can you go double? I'd think yes. Newcastle feels like the right play for me. So generally, I'm going to say Schär if it's available, or if not, maybe Lascelles. Raymond Reddinson says, hi James, I kept Diaz last week on your advice. Thank you. I mean, listen, I didn't exactly do you well there, mate. He didn't start, did he? Should I still keep him, having in mind he played almost full 90 on Thursday? Again, I've not got him in a predicted Liverpool lineup this week. There is a great run 14 to 16. But again, it's Fulham Sunday, Sheffield United Wednesday, Palace Saturday lunchtime. Does any Liverpool player play all three of those? Well, yeah, Alisson and Van Dijk, I presume, and Trent, maybe. and probably Salah. But there'd have to be doubts about all Liverpool players over those 3 games just because they're so close. That said, the 2 best of the 3 are the first 2. So, yeah, you can make a case to hold. But how do you feel if he doesn't start Sunday? And I suspect he probably doesn't. So, I think reluctantly, if you know where you want to go with it, it's possibly a sell. Obviously, very pleased that his dad's been returned safely is the most important news. Panos says, hi James, I have 2 free transfers and nothing to fix in my team. Thinking of doing a dinger to a cheaper midfielder to save money and free a Brighton spot. With someone to play game week 18. Any suggestions? So you want to free money from a midfielder who's going to play in game week 18? I mean, there is only 2 players that you could recommend. I mean, one isn't free in money, is Cole Palmer. And the other one, but I can't give you a definitive answer on this till I know if he plays tomorrow and how he plays in forthcoming weeks, is Lo Celso. Lo Celso, honestly, could turn into a bit of a dream asset from nowhere. From nowhere. I said in pre-season that if something happened to Maddison in pre-season, Lo Celso would 100% would go in my FPL team. 100%. He really impressed in that position in pre-season. Now, we played some poor opposition in pre-season. The games were very open and stuff. There's a relaxed nature. There's no pressure, etc. But he looked great. He was one of the biggest pluses of pre-season. Then Maddison obviously gets the nod at the start of the season. Lo Celso gets his chance against Fulham in the Cup, gets injured in the first half. And we've barely seen him since. But I think that Lo Celso's going to get the chance. He's been training for a couple of weeks. He didn't impress when he came on against Fulham a couple of weeks ago. But look, if you've got a 4.8 million midfielder playing number 10 in one of the most attacking teams in the league, that's quickly going to get on radar. I can't recommend that anybody buys Giovanni Lo Celso right now because I can't even be certain he starts tomorrow. And if he doesn't start tomorrow, that would make him questionable for all the weeks going forward. But if you needed to save the money now, that's near enough the only one I could recommend. I could even say to you, Sarr, right? But by then, Bentancur might nick his spot. So that's not great. Onyeka's one I mentioned last week as potentially one to keep an eye on, but they don't even play in 18. So there isn't anything great there from an enabling perspective to consider. There's nothing. Anthony Elanga, I don't think that's cheaper anyway, is it? Even the Bournemouth guy is probably more expensive. Nah, there's nothing there, I'm afraid. And I have to apologise. I'm having some gremlins today, unfortunately. Right, let me see. Panos, hi James, I have 2 free transfers, nothing to fix in my team. Thinking of doing, that's what we've done. Sam Megginson says, hi James, hope the Spurs news hasn't ruined Harry's birthday. With Dunk supposedly out, would you start Van Heck over Gvardiol or Porro or leave on the bench? I mean, Van Heck at best is probably a 6-pointer, isn't it? I get the fixture's great. I'd probably pick him over Gvardiol. I don't know if I'd pick him over Porro, would be my take. If Dunk's out longer term, by the way, I think Julio should be considered at 4.3. JHSUFC says, hi James, what's your views on Monday's madness at Spurs? How would you like to see Spurs set up going forward with the tough injury news today? So look, I did a really big piece on this on our Tottenham podcast on Patreon on Wednesday. Congratulations to our Chelsea followers who deserve to win. No complaints with any of the decisions. I thought Tottenham's strategy in the second half, or to be honest, let's call it Angie's strategy, was both stupid and brilliant at the same time. I felt it was stupid at the time, but it brought a togetherness and a kind of a, this is who we are and this is how we're going to play and shit or bust. Which, considering what I've watched the last couple of years, I think it really helps. Really helps. But you know what? Shit, we had 9 men and we had a go. And yeah, listen, we got beat 4-1. We could have got beat by more than 4-1 in the end. But it was a little bit of pride in so what? Let's try. And I preferred what Liverpool did against us, for example. I want my teams to play good football, but I think I mentioned this after we won at Luton, and I mentioned this after we won at Palace. Sometimes you just got to get yourself in a circumstance where the result does become more important, and I think that's a perfect occasion where you should accept that and try and get it. But Ange won't change. He said it again on that programme last night, which I would say was probably recorded prior to Chelsea. But he won't change. He won't change. We'll keep playing attacking football. There might be little bits of adjustments if it's, say, Dyer and Davis. But generally speaking, his attitude will be, let's get the ball in the opposition's half. Let's play our football from there. And that's the best way of defending. And that will be his take. In a weird way, listen, never likes to get beat by that, particularly against a team who you have a little bit of a rivalry with and stuff like that as well. But I don't know. It was a strange feeling. I kind of walked out with my chin high after the game. That's very different to what I've experienced watching Tottenham lose games over the last couple of years. NGGG24 says, Sky question, Romero to Hwang covers 2 captaincies, trying to avoid transfers elsewhere up to overhaul. Not a typical Sky pick, but should do a job to overhaul question. I'm not massively keen on that. And I've actually got Hwang in my second team, and he's been doing well for me, actually. But I'm not keen on it with a Neto injury. Really not keen. I know he picked up the assist at Sheffield United, but it's a long range effort scored from distance that takes a bit of deflection from Bellegarde. He's liable to play in a wider position, I think, at the moment. That might change tomorrow, possibly, because of Tottenham's issues. And if he plays through the middle, then he'll probably do well. You'll see the lineups, so that might help tomorrow. And if he is through the middle tomorrow, then I don't mind it. But if it's like Kalidžić and Cunha, I'm not so keen on him, to be honest. Feels like a typical one where you're relying heavily on the attacking returns, and he's in good form. He's playing really well. I'm just not massively keen on that for Sky. And I wasn't for FPL, and I said this basically after the Neto injury against Newcastle, even though he'd scored in that game, I just wasn't keen because I thought Neto's absence was going to have a real impact on him and them. So I'm not massively keen on it. I get it. The logic's fine. And if that's what you want to do, crack on. I'm not hugely keen on it, if I'm being really honest. Joseph Robinson says, Romero, James, what a plonker. Done more damage to the aspirations of everybody connected to your club than any Chelsea player could have dreamed of doing before the game. Yeah, fine. He's also been a large responsible part of us winning games. So, yeah, Van der Ven's injury, Maddison's injury, Udogie also acting like an idiot. He wasn't the only one. Alistair Hargreaves says, hi James, what do I do with Maddison? I'm planning to go to Martinelli, but what do you think of Bruno Fernandes? I'd buy Martinelli, mate. Bruno's on 4 yellows as a reminder as well. Yes, great fixture this week. If he blanks, you'll want to get straight rid. And do you know what? Is he fine for this week? Yep, sure. No owner's going to consider selling him. Would I buy him? No, thank you. Christopher Guinness says, hey, James, who do you think Ange will use to match the creativity of Maddison? Also, will Son be back on corners, free kicks, presumably penalty kicks? I'll say what I said to the advanced tier patron on the Team News stream. I'm sure it will be Son, but I would like Pedro Porro to take the penalties. I don't think you want Son on penalties, by the way. You might be looking at some minuses. I think Lo Celso will get the chance. That's my take. You can't replace Maddison's creativity. In the same way, you can't replace Harry Kane's goals and Harry Kane as a player, right? You have to do things a little bit differently. J23 says, Saka wasn't pictured in training photos today. Okay, cool. Shivand wouldn't be like Arsenal to play games. If he doesn't play, he doesn't play. Shivand says, would you start Shimikas over Lascelles this game week? Thanks. Yes. Jerry Darmiu says, since I got Baldock as part of my Son move, he's starting Baldock and Archer at home to Bournemouth in game week 13 ahead of Cash and Diaby at Spurs. A fine move. It's acceptable. I'm not going to call it a fine move. Tiffany FPL Firefly says, looking at Kudos, have Bowen or Hwang given the Spurs news? Sorry, James, for Madders. I still prefer Kudos to go with Bowen, actually. I think West Ham's fixtures are so good. I don't mind the double up there. Yeah. You going in right to Forest, Burnley, next 2? Yeah. And if Kudos starts outperforming Bowen, you can cut Bowen if you want. I would go Kudos. Heather says, Maddison to Mbumo or Eze, or who would you think? 8.7 million spend of Salah, Diaby, Saka, or Dingra. Thanks. However, I've said that it's Martinelli at the moment, and I haven't made my final decision. Is my most likely move. That's the only thing I can advise. Jack Roch says, hello, James. Thanks so much again for last week. Had a blast. Thanks so much, everyone, to come to the live show as well. We had a great time. Eyeing up Burns to Saliba with one free transfer. Benching Shimikas in the process. Would the transfer better be used selling Foden for a Martinelli? No, not really, because again, Burn's got to go. So, FPL General has always said this, and he's a far better FPL manager than me. Deal with your biggest problems at times like that, and there's nothing to keep Burn for, so get rid. Jay, it's Bowen for me. Tom Bolton, best Arsenal defender to replace Udogie. Saliba for me. Shout out to Paul Roper. Mr. Dyer says, who is the best replacement for Maddison? I think we've done this a few times now, haven't we? MRCX says, hi James, would you go Maddison to Saka? It's a lot of the same stuff here, isn't it, guys? Chris W says, hi James, thinking Alvarez to Nketiah, but have a power front 8, so who to bench out of Nunes, Diaby and Bowen? Or save the transfer and bench Alvarez. Save the transfer and bench Alvarez, mate. We can't go into Nketiah at the moment, can we? Unless we've got some information. James Stevenson says, hi James, which would you suggest here? Maddison to Bruno or to Bowen? Maddison to Bruno or to Bowen? If I went with the former, I'd be tempted to captain Bruno this week, but with the latter, I would captain Salah. He's just captain Salah, mate. Arash says, play João Pedro or Luis Diaz? It's probably 1 pointers from both. Pedro. They're both on the bench in dilemmas, and that's the slight preference. Right, I'm going to go as far as Simon Kurt is the last question I can see in front of me. Arash says, hope you're well, James. I am. Thanks. Dave M says, hi, James. Thoughts on Alvarez and Burn to Archer and Tritz for -4, or just do Burn to Gabriel for free? Yeah, I prefer the free. Aaron Hill says, not sure if you've seen, and Nketiah was pictured in training. Okay. Should that sort of push me to playing him? Would be kicking myself if he starts and I benched him. Oh, yeah, if you've got, I think you stick him in, don't you? Eric Onstead says, evening, James. My theory about Spurs, please elaborate. Since Ange come in, everyone is buying into his ideas and pulling in the same direction. I'm sure ones who come in will give it their all. Also, Benson called, I don't know what to add to that, Eric, but yeah, the statement is fine and I agree. Eric says also Benson call back is huge and you have a match-winning goalkeeper. My prediction is 2-0 Tottenham win. We'll play Porto and expect something. I presume that's meant to be Porro. Odan says, hi James, replacing Maddison but can't decide between Martinelli, Eze or City mid. Martinelli. And here's Simon Kurt's question that says, hi James, would you start Porro, who will be on set pieces but lower chance for a clean sheet, or Shimikas, who is not a guaranteed starter but huge upside if he starts? I would start Konstantinos Shimikas. And I'll leave it there, guys, because I'll be honest, it's just Maddison Saka, Maddison Saka, Maddison Saka. And I think we get the idea in terms of my intentions and my plans. Give FPL Juice a watch tomorrow on the deadline stream. I'll be covering a lot of the content creators. There's so many good content creators. There's loads of options for you in terms of deadline streams tomorrow. If you want to support the show, www.patreon.com/Planet FPL. We'll, as usual, have 5 additional podcasts from intermediate tier and above next week. Your content next week will be, for the freely available, Gameweek Review podcast on Monday. Tuesday, Clash to Correspondence, Newcastle versus Chelsea with Simon Bibby and Gary Mantle. Sky Fantasy Football on Wednesday. Clash to Correspondence again on Thursday. Brentford versus Arsenal with Tom Med and Adam Pritchard. And it will most likely be an Ask James stream from me next Friday. Apologies if you've been suffering a little bit with some stream lagging. That shouldn't be an issue for those on the audio. Remember, guys, play it your way. Have a very good weekend. I hope your arrows are green. And for the benefit of those on the audio, cue music, please, man child.